What is up, everybody? Welcome to episode 6 of the Pop Cult Cast. It's been a minute. It's been a little while, but we are glad to be back. Caleb, how you doing, man? How's the break been? How's the wait? What's going on?
It's been fantastic. For the viewers that know, like, I moved, and that's what kind of caused this little bit of a hiatus. But I'm settled in. I'm ready to get back into everything, and honestly, I'm just excited, man. I'm just excited.
And just for the viewers knowing, like, we graduated college in the summer, so give us a little bit of time. We're still maneuvering. We're still figuring out where our paths are going to take us. Even though we might not have a set like super schedule now, like, we just want you guys to know that we're always here. We just need to plan some stuff from here to there, but we're still getting into the groove of things. So we just want you guys to give us a little bit of some credit, or it's probably not the best way,
but no, it feels like definitely some credit.
Yeah, just give us a little bit of leeway. We got you if you guys got us. That'll be our agreement. We got you if you guys got us. But absolutely. I want to jump into this first topic because it's breaking news that Bruce Willis is the first actor to sign his face to AI company. Do you have more information on this?
Yeah, so he specifically has sold his likeness to a deep fake company. So he can be digitally rendered in some fashion into future films. For those that know, Bruce Willis is a goat of the action genre. He's one of the greatest to ever do it. But unfortunately, he has a disease that he's suffering from that has forced him into an earlier retirement than he may not have liked. Yeah. This technology is going to allow him to still be in movies by having him digitally recreated to, for those that have seen deepfakes, like, it can be very, very good, very realistic. But I think this is the future. Jordan, what about you?
I believe it's the future too, but it's a little scary. So, we all know that deepfakes aren't the newest thing to come out. Like, we've seen sort of more so the dark side of it with like pornography being used for deepfake, or deepfakes being used for pornography, slapping some poor woman's face on a body, which is super dehumanizing. But in terms of the acting roles, right? Is it false to say that what's his name? Guy from Fast and Furious.
Oh, Paul Walker.
That was AI, right? Or what was that? Do you know what technology used for his face?
I think it was like a deep fake with his brother's likeness. Like, I think his brother stood in for him, which still had that emotional impact and connection, but it was a recreation of Paul Walker's likeness.
Right. So it's not fully there, but this is legitimately fully. And I think I wrote down a couple of notes. So I do believe that this is a double-edged sword situation, but a lot of things in life are really double-edged swords. There's always going to be positives and negatives to it. Where positive is actors will never go away now, right? They always have this last sort of option to be hey, let me just sell my likeness and just let you use my face for any project you really want. It could be used for some projects that aren't so well received with their face, but hey, it's still they're still getting their face out there. But also, one of the biggest problems I see is that there was a situation not too long ago about the voice actor Troy Baker. He voices Joel in The Last of Us, and he got into the same sort of situations where he was going to lease out his voice for a vocal program that's sort of AI. And while it's cool, like I said, you get to use, especially lower budget companies that can now use these voices and faces for a lower price. That's pretty dope. But at the same time, what about the new upcoming actors that we want to get their shot in the business when they can get this legendary actor for this amount of low price, and it's still that name sort of brand recognition. And it's at one point, I hate to say it's so dramatic that it kind of destroys the industry, but at the other point, it's really cool. I was sorry to get too much into this, but I had this really cool idea about a movie I wanted to just writing some some notes of just some cool stuff. And I've always really wanted hold on, so I forgot his name. What's his name? Hold on. Drive Cast? I think he's in Drive. Oh yeah, Ryan Gosling. I've always wanted him in a horror movie. So I'm writing this thing down. I was like, man, I would love to get Ryan Gosling in a horror movie. And now it's oh snap, what if this AI thing was I can get Ryan Gosling in my movie for pretty low investment rather than getting him to act and get all the resources for him to do his thing. But yeah, man, this is definitely new technology that I'm super eager to see what has it, coming for? I want to hear your thoughts more about it.
Well, I completely agree with Jordan on how it's fascinating and also such an awesome thing that like somebody like Bruce Willis, that because of, or anybody because of age, disability, that can no longer do it, can still, feel like they are participating in cinema and its creation.
Mm-hmm.
But I do share your hesitation. How will this impact younger actors?
Yeah.
Like, I realistically could see something where the performances below the CGI DiCaprio is, that no-name actor that enters into the industry. When you're no longer going to get recognition, you're just breathing life into these digitally recreated famous people.
Mm-hmm.
And I also wonder, like, to what extent do you actually need actors anymore? And I'm going to touch on like the superficial nature of Hollywood and TV that we all know is there. Like, it's been the thing since the 90s. They do not cast people that look typically average in roles. You got to be like an amazing actor to overcome those things. Like, if you're a little bit overweight, you face that discrimination. If you're not as good looking, you face that discrimination in the hiring process. And I wonder, like, if we can get to that point where we can use somebody's likeness and put an Academy Award winning performance behind them, like why wouldn't Hollywood just say, well, we're just going to go find all the models in the world and use their likenesses to have the greatest roles ever? Like, I could see something scary coming from it like that. Granted, I think we're a little bit of a ways away from some of the more like, whoa, what will happen? Is this like, Black Mirror kind of thing? Because I feel like, unfortunately for Bruce Willis, I feel like the first stages of any technology are always the ones that get dated the most.
Yeah.
And I could see something being like The Irishman, that awful deep fakes they did to make De Niro and Joe Pesci younger. It was terrible. Like, an amateur 16-year-old could do a better job than what Netflix actually did. And I could see that being the case. But once we get there into the future, like, what's it going to look like?
Right. And then, sorry to cut you off, but like, I remember a discussion we were having with our San Diego Comic-Con reaction to the Groot thing. Like, we commented on like, why out of all people did you use Vin Diesel for the voice of Groot? And like, just in that situation, we can see how hungry Hollywood is for those faces. So like, let's say like when, the old guard of the Hollywood industry, let's say, like all pass away eventually, like, are they just going to keep reusing these actors over? Because I think in the trailer with Bruce Willis, he looked younger, right?
For which one?
So like in the news report, I think he's in like some like Russian trailer. Well, let me pull it up.
Wait, so they're already doing it?
Yeah. There was a, what's it called? I saw it in the report for the Telegraph.
Holy cow.
Apparently it was for, a digital twin of Bruce Willis in an advert for Russian, hold on, they're putting me the ad, for a Russian telecoms company. And he looks younger, or like he looks like, probably with some Hollywood makeup, right? But like, but yeah, just like, in a way it's eerie, but it's cool that these actors will never die and they can even like de-age them a little bit. But like, just like, do we really want to see like, sorry, I'm terrible at Hollywood names, but who's the guy that plays Indiana Jones and the guy from Star Wars?
Harrison Ford.
They're getting up there, man. And it's like, even though like I would like to see them in movies until like the end of time, like I want to give these other actors a shot, right? You're kind of just losing out on new talents that are rising out in the world, right?
I think this industry is always changing. Matt Damon was on that hot chicken wing show or whatever recently, and he laid some straight up facts talking about how the transition away from DVDs has affected what films are getting released, because studios know we have to have a banger that's going to do great at the box office. We can't just hope that it gets a cult following that buys the DVDs. Like, that's just not a viable thing anymore. Right. So it's transformed the industry, and I truthfully cannot imagine in what ways this will transform it. Like, what is the role of like these up and coming actors? Like, what is the point whenever you can have something so cheap? But I also wonder, if you sell your likeness, like let's say Bruce Willis was like a certain type of politics while he was alive, but then the company you sold your likeness to is using your likeness for politics you wouldn't have supported when you're alive, or something you wouldn't have supported at all. Like, is that within the confines? How do you actually contract that up in this day and age where we know like laws being written for tech are way behind the tech, like way behind.
Right, and that makes me even curious, like what does that contract even look like? Like how many years has he leased to this company that he signed his likeness to? And like how scary of a feeling is that when like, I mean, just looking at Marvel, for instance, like they sold like their like a huge amount of their property to Sony, and look how big that like battle to get it back was, even to today, where they can't even truly use Spider-Man or X-Men. And it's been years since the MCU has been a thing. And I want to go back to, we keep calling it like cheaper. Well, it probably is cheaper to use them than the actual like get them into the studio, but like, I mean, we don't even know how much that technology costs to really do that. So like we're saying cheaper, but I wonder if a lower sort of caliber company could realistically still afford that. But I mean, I think the overall cool thing is that while like you said, Bruce Willis is a legendary actor, I think we all know that. And for him to be unfortunately struck with, I think it's called aphasia, where like if it affects your like ability to speak and write, for him to get this sort of like, in a way, second chance, but in a way like not really, but like even though he just has that option to still stay in the game, right? And like even though he's not in the studio doing the acting, like he can still sit there, watch his face on the screen, like I'm sure he loves to do. So like either way, I think congratulations to Bruce Willis. You're dope, man. Like I can't wait to see you in more movies, more projects with this new technology.
Man, that's amazing. I gotta ask you this question. It's kind of a fun question. Which actors and actresses' likenesses would be the most valuable? Because when you brought up Harrison Ford, I was like, that is a name and a guy that if he sold his likeness, that's got to be the big B, you know, the billions. Like that's gonna be worth billions to say I can like control the likeness of Harrison Ford for future projects. Like how much is that like actually worth?
Right. Wait, the question was who I want to see, if like just like the likeness thing, like
who do you think would be the most expensive? Like I feel like owning a DiCaprio, a Margot Robbie, a Harrison Ford, like those names would have to command a huge dollar amount for their likeness. So I wonder who it would ultimately be.
Yeah, I kind of want to say, what's his name? So if I'm talking like full package, I kind of want to say Mark Hamill just a little bit. Like, oh yeah, and especially if like the technology kind of evolves to where they can de-age them. Like, I think Mark Hamill would be a pretty penny, man. What do you think?
Especially because like people like Harrison Ford and Mark Hamill, the reason why their likeness would be so valuable is because the intellectual properties they were involved in, Star Wars, Indiana Jones, in the case of Harrison Ford, are so valuable themselves. Like people are still going to want to watch Indiana Jones in like 20, 30 years. 100%. It will be me. I will still be watching Indiana Jones in 20, 30 years. Yeah. So like imagine somebody said we could do a whole new trilogy with Harrison Ford. And it's, you know, like 10 years past his death. And he signed off saying like, this is 100% cool to do. Or think about this, Carrie Fisher. Like if her likeness had been sold, like they could have never been forced into that position to write her off. So I think names like that would command a really pretty penny.
Yeah.
But I think sorry.
All right, go ahead.
The one that I think would probably, like, in my mind, be one of the most valuable would probably be Margot Robbie.
Margot Robbie, really?
Yes, because I think not only is she an immensely talented actress, I feel like she became probably one of the most famous actresses in the whole world in a short period of time. And I feel like there's no woman that I could go around the world and ask people from any different country, like, hey, do you know who this is? And show them a picture, and they'll be like, they may not know her name, but they'll know her. I just have a feeling she's like got that level of fame. So I feel like her likeness would be pretty expensive.
Right. That's actually such a good question. We might need to make another like topic video, like a whole separate other video about this. Now I'm like, now I want to gather like a whole list of names and just like write everything down. Maybe like we could put like a picture on there and just like what our price would be to pay for it would be. That'd be dope. But yeah.
How much would you sell your likeness for though? Well, how much would you demand?
You know what? Is this like right now? Are we like putting like a scenario that we're like Hollywood darlings, like people are ready to pay for us?
Just somebody's offering you amount. It's a take it or leave it thing. Like what amount would you command like before you would actually sell your likeness?
I might gotta do like a cool like. I was gonna say million, but I think that's too short. I'm thinking of like all of like the potential harm that can be like my face be put on.
Yeah, no
Like,
kidding.
yeah, especially like today's world. So like maybe a cool 10 million and I'm good. What about you?
Oh, dude, I feel like you're gonna hate me because I wouldn't go cheap. I would say like 500 million minimum.
What?
That's
Dude.
forever for eternity. Like they own it
Uh,
till they don't own it. So I would command like 500 million. Granted, I
I
don't think
mean,
anybody's gonna
right.
pay me 500 million for my likeness.
I mean, homeboy from our film class was trying to get you on a roll already. Like you have the face for it, man. People will pay for it. People will pay for you, bro.
Imagine if the conversation did go that way. Yeah, it didn't work out. You're not a good actor, but I want to pay for your likeness. And we're just
Right.
gonna deep fake you onto the other guy.
Oh, I
Okay,
didn't even think
500
about
mil.
that though. Like they could just put your face on somebody and they act for you. Imagine that. That's kind of cool.
Could you imagine how bad you'd feel if you got deep faked out of your own movie? Like you gave it your blood and tears. You gave a walking Phoenix performance, and they just like Photoshop DiCaprio
Dang,
on you.
that would be crazy. Sheesh. Yeah, that would hurt. I'd be like, I wasn't good enough.
Dude, for real. Like, no kidding. I'm sure some of these actors are gonna be so disappointed and be like, "We need you," and they're like, "All right, it's my time to shine, coming up in the world, but we're gonna replace your face. In fact, like your entire body structure with Bruce Willis."
Right. That's crazy, man. There's some interesting stuff there, but let's move on to some more interesting stuff. We got Ezra Miller in the news again. Caleb, you want to talk about this whole context? I didn't look too much into it, but I know the craziness behind it, but I don't know. I don't have too much context.
All right, so I'm gonna have to go into multiple tabs on this one because
Okay,
this
that's
is
fine.
a lot. For those that don't know, we have touched on this before, but Ezra Miller has been in headlines the entire summer and now stretching into fall. They have the big Flash movie coming out, and it's DC's riding on this movie. But Miller has been doing not just questionable, but downright reprehensible things, not in just the United States, but the world as whole. And this story gets crazy. So Business Insider did this report, and this is what they released. But it includes, as Vox has worded this, multiple bizarre allegations that they have been forming a sex cult, had groomed and brainwashed one formerly underage teen, and had acted wildly inappropriately with an 11-year-old. Like
Oh my God.
that's pretty intense. Like there's instances of like gun toting, like Ezra Miller hired a spiritual advisor from North Dakota that would tell them I don't know how to put this, but truthfully psychotic things that nobody should like have in their ear and taking seriously because it seemed like this person fed some extreme rendition of narcissism. Like Ezra Miller believed that they were something beyond the rest of humanity and they had to create this cult. And I got to say, reading everything that's done, I don't think this person should be a face in DCEU. No,
Yeah, because my big
no.
question is, after Flash, is Ezra Miller going to have a place in the DCU? Because I definitely don't think they are. I think after Flash, they're done. What do you think?
If I was that studio exec and I have hundreds of millions of dollars riding on this person to not just be a good actor and deliver a good film, which I'm sure Flash is going to be good. Like we've seen the trailers and everything looks completely fine. Nobody would imagine like this is Ezra Miller when they call cut. You know what I mean? But if that's who you are outside of it, like you're still a liability. And I don't think it's anybody else that worked on this film's responsibility to lose out on that job opportunity, that paycheck they're going to get from this film or future films, because you not only behave inappropriately outside the workplace, you do things that should probably have put you in jail by now. But truthfully, Ezra Miller's just getting a slap on the wrist because they just went to the studio heads. They weren't going before a judge saying, "Hey, I've done all these things. This is why you should give me a second chance." They just had to go to the studio heads and say, "Release my movie, please."
Right.
Instead of canning it. And this is like, it seems very criminal in many instances. And I know they said they're just getting mental health treatment, but I think sometimes even if, let's say Ezra Miller's mental health is bad and they're going through something rough and they do need help, I want them to get help. But I don't think like you are completely
Free of all of the shit.
vindicated.
Right.
Yeah, like especially like choking out women in bars, breaking and entering into people's house. You're a rich person. Like it's even worse to break into like some normal person's house and steal their stuff and choke them out because of like your level of wealth. But what about you? What do you think?
Yeah, man. Like, I think for me, this situation hits kind of harder because I don't know if you remember the whole situation with I think his name is Jay Fisher from the Justice League, and like his whole fallout with Joss Whedon, this Warner Bros, that whole like Justice League project, and how I'm sure he's essentially blackballed from Hollywood for I don't know how long, but for a minute, right? Because no one's even heard his name since Suicide Squad. And for Ezra Miller to have gone through all of this and still keep their sort of position in, this movie, at least, we don't know what's going to happen to them after the reduction of Flash. But I just think that's so it hurts because like why is Jay? Because I don't even want to like put the allegation out there that it's a thing of race, but like it's clear right there. Like I just don't understand how Jay Fisher got his career taken away, but Ezra Miller is pretty much scot free. And like I wish I hope for them to get their mental health on point and like go to therapy and really take the steps to get to where they need to be. But like I just don't know how anybody can see the situation and think this is like fair at all. And like I also brought up the point later in some like the early episodes that like we haven't seen the amount of backlash like compared to I forgot her name, Amber Heard, right? The people were literally sitting there like, I will not see Aquaman 2 if she's in it. And but I haven't seen that amount of backlash with Flash saying that if we see Ezra Miller in this, we're not seeing it. Like I think because I mean I guess I'm sort of a culprit to that too, because I'm sorry, I'm excited for this movie, man. Like this, like I'm talking about like Flash and like this like a whole bunch of multiverse stuff, but like what they did needs to be punished. I'm sorry. Like they need to, while they're in therapy, they need to have a little like a sit down. They need to get everything together. But like I said, this is completely unfair. Sorry.
So you do think like there's a degree of like potentially like white male privilege with Ezra Miller, and I know they're non-binary, but they're very much male passing.
Yeah.
And like that's what I thought was kind of interesting about this, because I saw some people on Twitter mentioning like, is the lack of punishment or accountability have something to do with the fact they're still male passing or they're white. And when it comes to like the whiteness, I definitely think that plays a role, because like I feel like in this game of Hollywood, like there is a little bit of a clearer path, it seems to be, for some actors and actresses. I think Viola Davis brought this up recently, that she's won Tonys, Emmys, Oscars. She's done it all. Like she says, I have a resume that's on par with some of the best in the game, but I'm not paid for it. And granted, I will say, after she did say that, I immediately looked to see, since she compared herself to Meryl Streep, I wanted to see who brought in more money. And Meryl Streep like absolutely dwarfs Viola Davis's box office gross. However, if she's saying I'm not getting those phone calls to begin with, like if you're not going to get called for that big project, then you're not even going to have the opportunity to say I'm $1 billion actor or actress, because you're not even getting that call. Right. And when people like Ezra Miller are like, hey, if you do treatment, we'll see if we can keep you around and keep doing more of these DCU projects. Like it's just genuinely unfair when there probably is like a talented actor or actress waiting in the wing that, isn't going to go to Iceland and strangle women and try and abduct homeless people in Europe, to join a sex cult. Like come on.
I mean, do you genuinely think that Ezra Miller has that second chance waiting for them after they get treatment?
Because I think Ezra Miller does have a lot going for them, in the fact that they are a young, talented actor. Like on top of that stuff, like if it was a lesser actor, even with the like white privilege and such, I still don't think they would get that second chance. Maybe, but I feel like because this person is talented, there's going to be studio heads that, whenever they're making that Oscar bait film, they're like, get me Ezra Miller on the phone, gonna make that money,
Because like, he serves that's like really great look of that like art. Because what movie were they in? It was The Perks of Being a Wallflower or something.
Oh yeah, that one, Perks of Being a Wallflower, and there's something about Kevin.
Right.
Like,
they had that look of, I don't think I saw that one, but they had like that look of like a A24, that artsy, like you said, Oscar bait film. That, but I'm just really interested in what their future looks like, because like just think of how not even hypocritical, but just how not even sinister, but like there's some sort of like in between where it's just not, I know life isn't fair, but like that's just not fair for them to get so many sort of fall into so many nets and like safety nets and keep getting a second chance. Like it's just like, come on, man. That's ridiculous.
Absolutely, I agree with you 100%. I hope in their future is like serious mental health treatment, like over a period of time, like not just that quick, like I'm in therapy and I go once a month now. Like no, screw that. Like when you're being accused of grooming children, like you need to be in some intensive care. If not, like I said earlier, like this should be criminal in nature. We shouldn't even be talking just about like what the studio heads are going to do. We should almost be considering, well, at what point does like the law step in? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like I'm pretty sure the FBI specifically does have like things on cults and such like that. And I know like technically you can go start your little hippie cult out in the, the sticks or whatever, and that's not like a crime or whatever, but like children, manipulating children using their fame and name and their likeness, like it's just completely not good. Not good.
I was gonna bring something up, but I forgot. Let me see if I can think about it real quick. Oh yeah. So like I kind of want like elaborate my point a little bit where I say I don't think I said that I don't want them to have a career after this. But what I do want, because I always believe in second chances, like always, like like maybe some people don't really, but like for the most part, I think people deserve second chances. And like I want after the Flash, I want them to get all the treatment they need. I'm sure they can afford it, and I'm sure the powers that be that are funding this stuff, it can provide that for them. And like after that, when they actually get that help and really show that progression, like I want them to get their careers like sort of just back in motion, to like get back to how it was. But as it is now, I want them to just get that help before companies like, okay, well, Ezra Miller's free. Let's get them in our movie. Like let him simmer down for a little bit. But yeah,
I agree, because I think Shia LaBeouf did something kind of similar recently that was very different to me in comparison to like some of these people like Kevin Spacey, right? Kevin Spacey gets accused of sexual assault. What's Kevin Spacey do? Acts even creepier, releasing like these really weird in character videos on Twitter, shows no like sign of remorse or like a apology and like giving wealth to the victims that they harm, like nothing, just like truly vile reaction to being caught. But Shia LaBeouf was, I believe, being abusive in their relationship, if I recall correctly. Not sure if I'm recalling it exactly right, but they did come out and say like, yeah, I admit it, like everybody knows that I've come from like kind of like an abusive household growing up, and I've endured that, and it's put me in a bad mental spot, and I own that, and I'm doing everything I can to not be that person. I'm sorry. And that stuck out to me because while like obviously neither of us are going to ever condone like abuse, even if you are a part of that cycle of abuse, like it's still not okay, it's horrible. But like you said, the second chance thing, I feel like that's something deserving of a second chance. Like if you can show like that not only are you going to get better, but you want to try and reduce the harm that you caused, like go find the people that you hurt, apologize. Like if they wanted to bring a lawsuit, immediately settle or do what you need to do so that way they feel content with like your apology in some way, shape, or form, rather than just deny and continuously be that person that harms others. And I think that's a differentiating factor that hopefully Ezra Miller can learn from. Like, I mean, imagine like they went back to all those kids or their families. Don't go back to the kids. Don't go back to the kids. But to their families say, hey, I was in a bad place. I, wasn't taking care of myself. I'm truthfully sorry. Here's a check. And if you need anything, like if your kids need therapy, like my estate or people will immediately handle that and you'll be taken care of. I'm so sorry. I feel like that's something that like could and should be done if possible.
Yeah. And I don't bring up Shia LaBeouf. I don't know if you saw the podcast with John Bernthal and Shia, but man, you like I love Shia LaBeouf. He like I don't know what it is about his character, but I just love the guy. But seeing him sit down with John Bernthal and really like just have like the most lethargic bro talk ever on like the internet. Like I love that podcast because it's literally just two men sitting down hashing, like just talking, listening to each other with like the utmost sympathy for each other, and just just really sitting down and talking about what happened. Like you really just see the progression in Shia LaBeouf's character to where like I think he's at that point of redemption, and like yeah, like I'm not on any sides, but like I think Shia LaBeouf's ready to get back into his groove again, and move past this and just be the better person that he seems to be. Right? Have you seen that talk with him and John Bernthal?
I've seen clips of it on TikTok, but I didn't sit down and watch it. Granted, I love John Bernthal. Like I love him. Like what he did with the Punisher in the Daredevil show. My goodness,
good.
Like
yeah, really great,
amazing, amazing.
Yeah, I was watching a little side tangent, but like I was watching like GQ's little segment of like top 10 essentials. I was watching John Bernthal's, and like his whole character, like he exudes like Southern hospitality to me. Like he just seems like such a down to earth dude. I know that term is used all the time, like cliche, but he's just so genuine. That's I guess a better word. Like I would love to meet him and just have like a nice little sit down. I don't even drink, but like I want to have a beer with this guy. Like
yeah,
he's like such a cool dude, man. But yeah, moving on to our next topic. Let's talk about some video games. We don't have a lot of video game talk in this podcast. We got another entry of Call of Duty coming up, Modern Warfare 2. Caleb, did you play the beta?
Unbelievably, I did not, and I'm like a Warzone sweat, literally. Like that's my therapeutic stuff I do whenever like a film or whatever downtime just isn't cutting it. I hop into the Warzone, deploy into the Warzone. But I did not play the beta. But from everything that I've seen and heard, I'm excited. Like it seems like a very strong step in the right direction for this franchise. I'm not gonna play any story mode. Like that's just not me. I'm strictly online.
Oh no,
strictly online.
See, for me, like I haven't been in the Call of Duty sort of verse in a long time. I think the last Call of Duty I played was Black Ops 3, and I was gonna ask you if you played it later because I wanted to know like what sort of things are different, what kind of stuff you don't like. I've heard that they changed the perk system a little bit to where like you have 2 perks in the beginning, and as the time progresses, a 3rd perk unlocks for whatever your class is. But like. Yeah, but that aside, like for me, if there's gonna be any appeal for Call of Duty, for me is like the campaign, because now they're starting to rehash the Call of Duties. Like it hurts my soul like a lot that there's like a second Modern Warfare 2, because Modern Warfare 2 is just come on, like that's cornerstone of gaming history right there. So because now if you look up Modern Warfare 2, it's like all the old Modern Warfare is like kind of buried down. And now like the new Modern Warfare 2 is now like at the top of the searches. I'm like, like that. It feels like my history kind of going away. But I saw the trailer for that story campaign and like, Jesus, like the graphics look amazing. Like just everything about that game, at least story mode, looks fantastic. So like this might be the first Call of Duty I pick up just for the story mode alone because it looks fantastic.
I think like games like this, these big IPs are finally at that point where we can see that leap in this generation of consoles from the last. Because I got to say, it did take a while, but when I did see like, the story mode graphics, I was like, oh my goodness, this looks amazing. Like I can't wait to run this on my Series X, like the way games are meant to be played in this day and age. And I feel like we're starting to see that with the games that are coming out now is they are taking that leap and we're seeing the capabilities of these new systems finally being utilized the way they should.
Yeah. But one thing I wanted to ask, talking about like remakes and like just being rehashed, like just talking about the gaming industry as a whole right now, do you think that remakes and like rehashes are sort of like overdoing it right now? Or do you don't think so?
Nope.
I believe, because we're going to talk about this later in like one of our other segments, but like I think that rehashes right now are just, I don't want to say that we're running out of ideas because I think there's always good ideas, but we're just not looking for them. Like one of my biggest pet peeves is like, oh, like there's no creativity nowadays, but like I think we're just stuck in like the MCU verse and like these sort of like prime name brand things that we're not actively looking out to see like what's new and like refreshing. But in terms of this, like Call of Duty, like I truly think if there's one industry that is sort of relying off of rehashes, it probably is Call of Duty, because like it just like what other point do you have of calling your name Modern Warfare 2 than just kind of like rebuilding that old sort of hype for it? But
yeah,
I'm curious, why do you think that we're not sort of relying on rehashes or remakes?
Well, I just feel like video games are just not being made in the quantity that they used to be. And I think it is similar to like why we're seeing like MCU movies and all these superhero films or these big like blockbusters rather than more these like A24 films or indie films. Is making a video game in this day and age is expensive, really, really expensive. And it takes a long time.
Yeah.
Like Grand Theft Auto 6 has been in development what, like 10 years now? We still got a few more years to go. Like
Yeah.
that's a long time. Like imagine if your game sucked and you invested like damn near 2 decades into it. You got to make your money back. Like, and there's no way you're going to do it if that game's trash.
Right.
But with games like Cyberpunk, I do see that
I was
silver
about to say
lining
that. Yeah.
because it had that rough release, but they kept it as a live service, you know, and they continuously updated it until it got to that point where it was what it honestly should have been at launch. And you know what? I will take that L on it not being like completely flawless at launch to ensure we're still getting games that are not just rehashes. And I think us as fans could probably send that feedback to developers like, yeah, we'll stick around because we know like this takes time. We need to understand like it's not how it used to be when we were younger, when you could just like pump out games, you know, damn near every single year with a whole new Assassin's Creed. It would be like a whole new fleshed out thing. And it takes like years to do that now. And I think we can do a little bit better as fans by letting these developers know like we're in the ride for them so they can expand, so they can take those risks, so we can get more games. But will it happen? Nah.
Right. Yeah, I'm super glad you brought up Cyberpunk because man, what a 360 like redemption story right there. Like I don't know if you saw Edge Runners on Netflix, but like such a good show. Perfectly launches someone like, ooh, I'm in the Cyberpunk world. I want to play the game. Boom, you drop. I think it's still on sale for like $25, or maybe the sale ended, but like I for damn sure dropped that 25 and I started playing. And bro, like because I picked it up in 2020, but I don't know if you remember, but they did like a whole refund thing, like for the first time ever, like on I think on all platforms, not all of them, because Steam always had a pretty decent refund policy. But I know for PlayStation at least, that they did like a whole refund on the game. Like, if you guys want the refund, just email us, we got you. And like at that moment, I was like, man, this sucks because to this day, I have never been so immersed in a video game world ever than Cyberpunk 2077. Like it hurt so bad for that game to like be in that state. But now that I repurchased it for my PS5, I remember going into it, I was like, man, I hope I can still have the same flame I had for this game when it dropped. And man, like I'm still addicted. Like this game is
they improved it so much.
Right.
Like I was in the same boat as you that I picked it up in 2020 and I remember seeing it like out the box, playing it on the Series X and it crashed.
Dude.
Like
all
it
the
would
time.
crash.
Yeah.
And I was like, yo, this is actually a broken game. And like that's why people were getting the refunds and the graphics were nowhere near the level advertised. Like they were actually pretty booty on the Series X.
Yeah,
like
it was for sure.
It was not good. But then a year or so passed and I was reading about the updates and how they did all these different stuff. And I saw an update on my Xbox for it. So I was like, all right, like I just finished Red Dead 2 with my wife, you know, downloaded the update, hopped in, and I was amazed. I was like, whoa, this is like a whole new game. This is like what the trailers look like now. And I started playing it and I'm having a blast with it. Like I'm actually one of those people that they're mentioning in the million right now that have been hopping on over the past month because it's where it finally should have been. And you know what? Like I would take that L for the 2 years to get to this point now than Cyberpunk just not exist and we're on like whatever sequel video game would be at.
Right. Now I'm so proud and glad that Cyberpunk, I don't know if you know about Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, but Capcom dropped that fighting game and it was like it's probably like one of the worst received fighting games ever. And like they completely just stopped. Like they stopped updating it for like I remember the game dropped in September. By December, like there was no communication through any sort of means. It was essentially like a dead game. And like of course, with the fighting game community, like there's always that subsection of people that will keep a game alive. But like just seeing how CD Projekt Red completely like was like, okay, we're dedicated to making this game as good as it's supposed to be. And just like 2 years later, which is, you know, maybe long in like the video game world, but for them to stay dedicated and like really give us that product, that's just that's so it just warms my soul, man, because it's like they could have but maybe not could have easily like abandoned the game because CD Projekt Red isn't a video game company that just like puts out games here like every year. So like they were probably dedicated from the start to keep patching this game. But shout out to them just for like having the biggest underdog story probably in gaming history. But
that game deserves all the success. Like
100%.
They deserve the success right now, 100%.
And like I wanted like a little side tangent, like the PC players for this game. I have a little nitpick for y'all. I really don't like how you guys are like, oh well, Cyberpunk was always this great game and like it's always deserved this thing. Like sure, like story wise and like the immersiveness, but like you guys like the PC experience for this game is completely different than the console experience. Like I just feel like you have such nearsighted vision to say that the PC sort of experience for it is like everybody's, when like a lot of people have more consoles than PCs, and like that experience of like it crashing, like characters doing T-poses out of nowhere, like cars doing floating, like just some really weird things happening in the game was the majority of the experience. So like while we all know the game like content wise in terms of like what it is, it's really good. Like don't be blind to the fact that this game really was broken from the start. So like while we're giving it that underdog story, like it definitely had that thing to grow from. So like it wasn't always perfect. But going back to the COD talk, I did want to end this topic with one quick question. What's your favorite COD? Hard one.
Oh, dude, it's so hard. World at War is one of my all-time favorites because I was playing that when I was younger.
And we'll do top 3. Just make it easier.
Call of Duty Black Ops is number 1.
Okay, solid pick. I like that.
Number 2 is Modern Warfare that came out a few years back.
Okay. Oh, okay. So a new Modern Warfare.
Yes.
Okay.
Loved it because I'm including it with Warzone because like Warzone was just a game changer to me. I think it was definitively the best battle royale for adults. Throwing some shade at Fortnite. 3, I'm gonna get hate for this, but Ghosts.
Dude, no, I feel you. I think Call of Duty Ghosts is a weird experience because what was the game that came after that? I think it was Infinite Warfare or Advanced Warfare.
Oh my goodness, yeah, that was the first COD I bought, put it in, played one match, and immediately gave it away.
Well, really? Or Infinite Warfare or Advanced Warfare? 2 different things. Advanced Warfare is the first jetpack one. Infinite Warfare is like
Advanced Warfare was the one that I just immediately was like trash.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie, I like Advanced Warfare, but the thing about Ghosts, it was the first Call of Duty where like after that installment, even though I liked Advanced Warfare, I went back to Ghosts. I was like, man, I really underappreciated this game. It's such a simple Call of Duty experience, but it's so like just for it being so simple and so like grounded in what Call of Duty is, like it was so great. Like it made me really love that game more. But like, I'm totally with you. But like for my top 3, I think Black Ops 2 is the best Call of Duty. I know that's so cliche.
It's a good one. It's a good one though.
Black Ops 2 is, I think that's the only COD game that I have so much time on. But I think number 2 will be World at War. Number 3 probably. Number 3. My first instinct was to say Modern Warfare 2, and I love Modern Warfare 2, but like I think I spent more time with Modern Warfare 3. I think Modern Warfare 3, for how many flaws that game has, I think it's a nice, simple, pure sort of Call of Duty. I think it introduced score streaks, but I know a lot of people didn't like. But hey, man, like I'm a casual COD player. I like getting kill streak points just for like walking, just some mediocre like action, but.
Dude, you know what's actually kind of funny? I know we're like ending this topic here soon, but have you ever like looked back at where these first-person shooters have come from? So like Battlefield and COD, and like let's be real, COD is just crushing EA and Battlefield like in totality right now because Battlefield 2042 was a horrible, horrible game. But like playing it back in the day, there'd be like no real recoil to the weapons. Like every gun was just a straight like pea shooter basically, no matter what it was. Like so gimmicky. And now we're playing and there's like realistic recoil, different sights, all these different attachments, and it's just like wildly different as a gaming experience.
Right, because I would love to look back at different like YouTube videos of like the older like CODs and just FPSs in general, but like we really need to give that shout out to like how far the FPS genre has come into like really nailing that realistic aspect and like so just sort of always carrying like the gaming industry because like FPS has always been like one of like the top genres and has always been performing. So like people, you know, it's clear that people love FPSs. So like for it to have gone from such like humble beginnings to like where it is now is like
awesome. Humble beginnings is a great way of putting it, like truthfully humble in comparison now.
100%. Talking about humble beginnings, Twitch has been going through a lot of changes. So Twitch.tv, the massive gaming plus like live stream, like just like biggest live stream platform, not even just gaming. I've been going through some changes, right? So just a couple of weeks ago, a whole bunch of drama sort of like changes have been going on. So one of the bigger ones is that for like the top, 0.1% of streamers, so like, yeah, just a very small percentage, they're getting their stream revenue cut from like, I think they were getting like 70-30 before. So now it's getting cut to, I don't even think they would release what they're going to change it to. But yeah, that's changing. Let's see what else. In Korea right now, they're getting their stream encoding rate changed from like 1080p from the standard, but now to 720p. I'm not exactly sure why that's being changed, but probably just one of the bigger things was speculated is just to like save costs. But other than that, the drama has been pouring out. So there's been multiple accusations of sexual assault on this website from like one of the bigger streamer groups on Twitch. Well, not so like it's not multiple people doing sexual assault, but it was just one person. And off of that sexual assault allegation, like a whole bunch of other drama sort of spilled out. And I hate calling sexual assault drama because like grow up, but like that's what the community's been calling it drama. But let me see. My notes are sort of jumbled up, so let me just go through this real quick. But sexual assault allegations. But the big sort of drama was gambling, where the streamer named Slicker apparently was going years asking his fellow streamers and his viewers for X amount of money to fuel. I think he was asking just for like help with like his financial situation, but apparently he was using that financial gain for gambling, which has always been such a huge topic of debate for the platform because usually like the top streams are like right there in the gambling section because Stake, one of the biggest sponsorships for gambling, has made like streamers like SQC, Aiden Ross, which have like 30,000 viewers pretty much average, streaming it on the top of the platform. So like you have a lot of kids watching Twitch and potentially getting addicted to gambling. So going back to Slicker real quick, apparently all his donations to like his streamer friends and viewers accumulated to over $300,000. And yeah, and different streamers sort of came together and sought out different people, whoever donated him money to sort of pay it back. But it just really brought up that question again, is how harmful is gambling? And like now that Slicker sort of was the martyr for the situation, it sort of forced Twitch's hand to change the guidelines on gambling and officially, I think it was last week, banned. I forgot the specific sort of. I think it was just slot gambling. They banned slot gambling, but there's still like sports betting and like all that other stuff. But yeah, this whole situation sort of just kind of woke me up to it because I've always been the sort of guy to be like, how could you be addicted to gambling? And it's such a ignorant sort of thought process on my end because for me it's like, how can I be addicted to like losing money? Because that's all really gambling is.
Oh, dude, I could tell you how it happens because I'm a blackjack player, brother. Like I love blackjack. I go to the tables, and the way people get hooked is like blackjack's an interesting game at the casino because it's the game where you do have the best odds if you're playing correctly. And if you're counting cards, in some instances, you could actually have an advantage over the house and you could bet accordingly, knowing when you do have that advantage. But no matter what, it's always a risk because you don't know what card's coming next. You could have an idea of what card could be next. But when you win, the rush of winning is so great that like you need to lose 10 times to get rid of that rush. Like the rush is so strong. Your brain, I don't know what it is about it, but it loves it. Like I was just in Vegas a few weeks ago, man, and that's what I was doing there. And like, let me tell you, winning is a rush. Like you go up and you're telling your spouse you just won 500 at the tables, like in an hour, and you're like, whoa, that's like making 500 an hour, and your brain just eating it up. So I can see how people can get it addicted because you see it.
It's right.
At
it's right
the
there
table.
in front of you. Right.
Like you see people that are chasing, I mean, they're chasing their losses. Like in Vegas, right? I will never forget this. And like I said, just happened a few weeks ago. One of the guys at the table with me was certainly chasing something. So he looked like your average dude, didn't like, not like he had a lot of money, but he had thousands of dollars on the table in the black chips. So black chips are $100 each. And he was betting two hands max bet. So $1,000 between two bets every round of blackjack. And I watched him lose over and over and over. And his mannerisms and the way he was acting, like he was chasing. Like he was chasing, like, as you'd say, that rush, that high. Right. So I definitely could see how people get addicted to it.
Yeah, it's a little different because I don't think blackjack is banned from Twitch now, because they've deemed blackjack as a skill, sort of a more skill-based game than slots, which is literally just like pull the lever and just keep going. And that's what they banned. So I think I clarified that. But like, you know, just going back to what I said about being like sort of unsympathetic towards that sort of addiction, which was like super like what's the word? It's sort of it's kind of bad for me to think like that, because you know, all addictions sort of stem from somewhere, right? And even though I was always in that mind where like I could never be addicted to something that would lose me money, but like you said, like there's that hit of it from winning after losing probably so many times. But like, and just thinking about Twitch as a platform where so many kids are on it and watching these bigger streamers do that, like imagine how destructive that would be for, I don't know, some 13, 14-year-old to already be addicted to gambling because their bigger streamer was doing it and winning big. And by the way, that's not even their money. Like Stake and like those sponsorships are giving them fake money to just keep gambling. And like it's not their money that they're taking away. But guess what? You're not XQC where you get these big lump sums to, you know, start gambling. You have to take it out of your own pocket and your own hard work, you know, hours at work, right?
It's essentially an advertisement for those sites at that point. Like that's why those companies give them that money to gamble and stream it, is because it functions as an advertisement. And like you said, like kids seeing it. If you're in St. Louis, like we have a few casinos around the city, like you can't take your kids in there. Some of them are attached to hotels, so the kids can walk around the hotel lobby, but the second you get to the casino floor, like your kid is not coming onto that floor with you. Even in Vegas, I think it's somewhat similar, but it's just so loose because every casino there is part of like a major hotel. So there's people running around everywhere, but you can't take your kid onto the floor. They can't watch you play slots or, you know, stand next to you while you're at tables. You can't do that. And I think there is a reason for it. Like gambling and the environment around it is just for adults, plain and simple. It's for people that are making that conscious decision. This is, like you said, my hard-earned money. I can choose what to do with it, and I can choose to play this game where I lose it all and tell myself it was fun doing it. That's how I handle my losses. I meant to spend that money. Like, it's just the price of having fun, right?
Right.
But no, not for kids. So I do think Twitch made the right call. But I do have a question for you. You remember when that Star Wars game came out with the loot boxes and Congress got involved because they considered it gambling? Would Twitch take some type of anti-gambling action against games that are like that, where it is pay for play or play to win or pay to win?
See, that's a good question. I mean, one, I don't have a lot of information on like, because I totally remember what you mean with like the whole, because even like legal like agencies are getting into like the whole loot box sort of thing. Like think about Overwatch 2 coming out soon, because they have like a huge loot box sort of economy on that. I wonder how that's, cause I don't think they're going to target that, but it's definitely something to think about. But I wanted to talk about another Twitch change that I kind of skimmed over. But now that, because Twitch used to be, if you're a partner, that you're exclusively supposed to stream there, you can't stream anywhere else. But now they changed the rules to where big streamers can. Actually, I don't know if partner streamers have to still stream on Twitch, but I know for everybody else they can stream anywhere else. Because Ninja did this whole new promotion where I think his campaign was called like I'm Everywhere, because he was literally streaming everywhere. He was on Facebook Gaming, Twitch, TikTok, YouTube. Yeah, he was literally streaming everywhere, and it's like that's kind of
that money though.
Exactly, right? Like I think that's, in my opinion, I think that's like the natural progression of like streaming, is just like, you know, get your face everywhere as possible. That's gonna make it harder for a lot of people to grow, but like hey man, if you're already making 6 figures from this job, man, like you better get your face everywhere you can. Keep going, man.
Absolutely.
Right.
Like they always say, even bad press is good press.
Right.
So just getting everything out there as far as possible is kind of always for you as a somebody with a platform is just a W.
Right.
And the amount of money like somebody like Ninja is rolling in just from streaming, making fat bucks, dude. Fat bucks.
Right. Well, speaking of W's, some things had to take some L's. We're gonna be talking about some we gotta talk about some She-Hulk action. So She-Hulk, I think it premiered sometime last month. Of this recording, the 7th episode dropped. I still need to watch it. But She-Hulk hasn't been getting the best reception. I'll just start with my sort of impressions of it. Clearly, I don't really like it. But besides that, I just, me not liking it, I think sort of like the other side of the MCU sort of fan base always has that. And I think Disney sort of weaponizes sort of thinking is like, oh, you just hate it because there's a woman, or you hate it because, you know, there's a black character or whatever. And it's like, no, like, I'm sorry, but She-Hulk is just terrible. And I was getting into a Twitter argument, like, you know, some loser stuff. Like, you know, just talking about on Twitter, and this guy was like, oh, well, like, you just hate it because you're a woman, or you hate it because there's a woman in it. And it's like, or I mean that, and it said like you just don't want comedy and, you know, your MCU stuff. And I was like, huh, the woman thing definitely wasn't true, because, you know, there's some great woman protagonists. But I was genuinely wondering, is, am I sort of tainted to more serious stories? Do I generally like to tend towards that? And like, that's sort of the case. But then I look back and I'm like, is there any comedy shows that I really loved that has a really good plot? And while I was thinking, I was like, oh wait, The Office. The Office is a great comedy show with like a stemming plot with, you know, Jim and Pam, and like how the, you know, office dynamics sort of evolve and grow and, you know, come apart. And it's like, that's a perfect example of something that I loved and laughed at. Whereas She-Hulk, like, I feel like there's just no sort of progression there. I feel like it's sort of just a slap in the face for Marvel fans in general. Because it spawned this sort of subsection of Marvel fans that want people to dislike projects. Let me pull up a tweet while I'm talking about this. Hold on 1 second. Where's it at? Hold on, almost there. Let's see. I reply to a lot of stuff on Twitter. This is taking forever.
Yeah, I completely understand.
Yeah, but there it is. So this person on Twitter commented on a quote retweet of, so the big thing about She-Hulk right now is that Daredevil's supposed to be in it, right? And like, that's already such a shame, because if you're kind of relying on Daredevil to sort of hype your show up, it's just like, come on, that's not really a good look. But they typed in, She-Hulk baiting people with Daredevil is hilarious because it's 100% on brand with the character, and they deserve it for watching this show and not expecting that. And then they replied to another tweet saying, this is the best outcome, so people expecting Marvel shows to be better and more bombastic than they are. Plus, it will start many arguments. And it's like, why do you want the fandom of Marvel to like just have arguments and have, quote, stop expecting Marvel shows to be better? Like, what kind of, like, what is that? Like, why are you trying to degrade the MCU where it's already at right now, and it's arguably like the most divisive phases of this property? It's wild to me. But I'm curious what you think of She-Hulk right now.
Well, I don't think anybody has to like something just because it's from a certain IP. Like, if that was the case, I would still be, you know, riding Star Wars pretty hard. But for those who paid attention, they know that I hate Star Wars now. It's ruined for me forever because of like the recent stuff. I hate it so much. Yeah. But like, that's just me. In terms of the MCU, though, I agree that this phase did not inspire happiness for me. Yeah. You know, and you brought up like some people have like a defensive response where they want to accuse you for not liking it for any type of prejudice or whatever. But for me personally, it just did not hit. Like, there was so many things that were just terrible. As a matter of fact, I think the worst movie out of the phase was Doctor Strange's Multiverse of Madness.
You think that's the worst?
Horrible. I was so mad watching
Love and Thunder?
Love and Thunder. Okay, don't remind
Yeah,
me.
no, like
So bad,
that's
I'm
crap.
intentionally trying to forget it, but no, they're both really bad. And I know that the MCU has always had those duds. Like I think they've been blessed that some of their duds haven't been so terrible that it just like pulls you out. Like I remember early on with the Thor movies that the second one, The Dark World, was just it was a dud to me. I watched it in the cinema. I was like, oof, like we didn't really need this. Could have just progressed to the next Avengers without this crap, to be honest. But none of them were so egregious. And I think the issue may be is if you have a whole TV show with like 10 episodes, 6 to 10 episodes, that's like 5 hours of content. Imagine 5 hours being a dud over a one and done movie. Like it's going to stick, it's going to permeate because you're going to still have that hype of every week, the next episode, but it's not going to be as good. In terms of She-Hulk, I don't think this one was a dud. I think this one was like the typical Marvel mid. That I've grown accustomed to. Absolutely. Like it's not, on par with something like No Way Home or Civil War, or definitely not the Avengers movies. The Avengers movies always have to be up here, period. Like if they're not good, that's a problem. But it wasn't like as bad to me as I think a lot of people said. I do think there were like the obvious issues of the CGI Hulk was really bad in relaying that actress's chemistry because the CGI was not good. It is not good at all. Like it's troubling because like, she's supposed to be giving kind of like a comedic performance at times, and it just does not work for me in CGI. She should revert back to her like human self for that to hit if you guys are going to go that cheap on the CGI. But some episodes have been enjoyable to me. Others are just kind of like, okay, I'm on my phone until, the big thing happens. But I think it is definitely a step up over Moon Knight, which I think is crazy since I think some people worship that show. As I'm
there
seeing
is
on
a weird
TikTok
like
now.
little cult following for that show. Like people love Moon Knight. People love that show, but I mean, speaking of CGI, like totally like that's well for me. First, oddly, it's not really affecting me as much. Like there's some pretty awful points, but I mean, just talking about one good thing, like when they were fighting like the demons off in like that theater, and they have there's like the undershot of She-Hulk, and she's holding up the demon to like one of the guy's face. Like I don't know if I'm tripping, but like the CGI there looked really great. I was like, wow, her face looks amazing. Like how come they couldn't do nothing the whole show? But before we get into more about like sort of like the budgeting issues of the MCU, how it's sort of degrading, like I did want to talk about sort of the more like I'm not sure if it's like this whole like man versus woman like issue going on with the show is like I'm just sort of getting tired of it all. Like I'm really getting sick of in a way this is gonna sound pretty bad, but like the whole like people like vying so much for diversity, because it's like I feel like companies are getting more in the way of, okay, we need this show to have this powerful woman, we need this show to have this powerful black male or black female characters. Like I just at this point I just want really good product, because there's always going to stem to this sub discussion of like, oh, you just don't like it because of X thing. But like even this show, like I don't really blame men for not liking it, because at least how I feel, like there's always just little shots at men every time they like want to get at it. And like there's the whole meme of like Jennifer Walters saying like, oh, like I have it worse than you, Bruce. Like I get called every day, and it's like, ironically, I kind of like that scene because it makes sense, but like, it's just so like what to me it just sort of cringe a little bit, because like, what if like Bruce Banner was like, oh well, like the suicide rate for men is 50% and like women don't do it. It's just like it is like so like it's not necessary. Like there's so many better ways you can write how like the deal like the Danish women have to go through, and like so like the what's the word I'm looking for? It's how they're not taken seriously in like a workplace, and such more creative and like better substantial writing. Like think of a Jessica Jones. I don't know if you watched that show, but like, man, is she a badass character? She's dope as hell. And like there's this perfect thing with like Kilgrave and like him having the power to control her with like his mind or whatever. It's like there's this beautiful sort of underlying message of how like a man can sort of manipulate a woman to do what they want. It's like that's chef's kiss writing to like just sort of write that. But like here I feel like it always falls flat for the sake of just having to get the one hit on like the incel sort of like part of the MCU. Like I think there's even this Twitter account called She-Hulk that there's a tweet that blew up. Hold on, let me pull it up. Um, let's see, there it is. Where it says it's like the She-Hulk poster, but it says, come on, pull up. Where's it at? Hold on. Oh, they're tweeting a whole bunch of stuff about episode 7 I did not watch. I'm getting spoiled actively. Hold on.
I don't know.
Come on, pull up. Oh, no, I bookmarked it. Hold on. Let me try that.
Well, while you're pulling that up, I just want to say that I do disagree a little bit.
Okay.
And that I think like the push for diversity in Marvel was necessary because I had this realization while I was watching She-Hulk in an episode that just wasn't hitting, right? I think it was the third episode where, you know, she's just now like starting to represent Abomination. And I was like, man, I was kind of hyped for this because I think the premise is really cool. Like she's going to be a superhero attorney, like a court drama kind of thing. But it wasn't hitting. And I was like, so why am I watching something that's just not hitting the way it is? And it's because I recognize like the MCU has become like a huge part of American culture, like here in the US. And I think like it's hit in a lot of regards, like, and it's expanded that. Like, I think, you know, introducing the Black Panther and the cultural response to that film and the character was like a net positive thing. And since it is representative of American culture, America is like a very diverse country. We do need to ensure like that cultural phenomenon that the MCU is reflective of that.
Yeah.
But I think it's like one of those unfortunate things. And right when that happens, the product gets worse.
Yeah.
And like that is worrisome because you will have those really nasty individuals. They're not like giving good faith critiques. They just take issue with the fact that there is a person of color or there is a woman in those roles. And they feel like it's invading their safe male space, like it was always meant to be for them.
Right.
And like that's just, you know, I find that absolutely disgusting because not only do those people suck and they always drag down people's enjoyment of things with their racism or misogyny, but from my perspective, they oftentimes look like me, dude. It's like some white cis dude. And then it creates this environment and space where people will feel defensive of me, thinking like if I start to voice a criticism that I'm coming from that same field. And that sucks. Like I don't want to be associated with those people at all. Like I don't share any of their viewpoints. Like if I have a criticism, like I'll go into specifically why it is, like in terms of storytelling. Like, and I'm not trying to like dog whistle my way through it. Like I'm just trying to be genuine and real about whatever I think is wrong. But I also do think there's something I saw on TikTok that it's created like kind of a bad reaction, like on the opposite side of things, where there was this woman that was saying like, if you're a white person, you should not go see Black Panther 2. You need to buy a ticket and give it to a black family. And I was just sitting there thinking about how problematic that is. It was like, one, like that sounds like it comes off like segregationist-y. Like it really does. And also like, isn't it like ultimately better that we have this film that everybody is at this point recognizing like Black Panther is like a little bit more than the character, like he is representative of culture to some degree, you know what I mean? So it is a little bit of a bigger deal. Wouldn't you want everybody to that is here in the US to go there and feel inspired by something like that and coming together? Like the point of the diversity was to like bring people together from all different walks of life and, you know, like I don't know, help us like really overcome some of the real life crappy things that are going on out there that we're all trying to like forget together and like have that space that is awesome. So I think like it kind of sucks that to a degree you're stuck between like those two crossroads.
Yeah.
With something that is like could really be a good thing. Like think about it. Like imagine we have like this new set of Avengers that's diverse. The next Avengers comes out and it's an absolute banger. Like think about what kind of good that can do outside of being just a good movie. Like because the MCU is a part of culture. But you have that tweet up.
Well, well, you know, let's get rid of the tweet on that. But like, what I mean by saying like I'm kind of over diversity and like the whole thing is because like that should never be the first thing that's on your sort of like you know, trying like what's the thing of like the climb of needs or whatever it's called, like but yeah, like diversity should never be on that top list because it should, at least for me, it should always just be about telling a good story. Like it doesn't like because usually, at least what Hollywood has shown so far, is that they cannot, like, in the right mind and the right execution, sort of put that sort of first and not have these sort of bashing of like their opposition. Like if it's a lead role of a woman, like this always has to be something that's a bash a man. If it has to be a black led role, it has to be something that bashes a white man. It's like that's not what that should be. It should be a strong character who just happens to be black, white, whatever, like a marginalized group. But like taking in, recent events like the whole what's it called? Little Mermaid, right? Where people are freaking out that she's black. Where it's like, of course you have the racist people that it's like, I'm not seeing it because it's a black mermaid. But then you have people that kind of have a good reason. It's just like you just don't need to rehash it and just have a black person there just because it's diversity. Like for me, example, right? I would love to have more black people in media, but how about we make new stories that we can have for our own? Like that's why I love like Miles Morales' Into the Spider-Verse, because it's such a strong story that's completely his. That's an actual character in like that story. And it's like just to get constantly rehashed, like the new Thor being a woman or this is not like, for me it feels like such a slight because I want my own sort of thing. Maybe that's like a selfish thing, but I don't want to be second behind this character that used to be white or this character used to be this is that. So at the end of the day, I just think it's cheap.
I want to ask you then, like, does that mean you would be like opposed to like an Idris Elba being James Bond?
See, and that's what we have to take into consideration. Like the reason why I think the whole like even like people saying that Little Mermaid is black is like blasphemy is because that character's whole thing has nothing to do with their skin color. So like in comparison to like if Black Panthers just so happened to be a white man, that would be a problem because that whole character's identity is African American culture. So that's where it'll be messed up. But like if Idris Elba became James Bond, like even though I think James Bond should or Idris Elba should have his own little thing, like I mean I wouldn't be opposed to it, but I'd be like cool. Like it's not like some triumphant event for like black people that he's like James Bond now. But go ahead.
I think like there's just a little bit of worry with that because like I'm a huge James Bond fan and like James Bond like there are like black British people, like people that are born, raised, had generations of families in Great Britain, and like that's what James Bond is. It's a person from Great Britain, right. Like that's, and the discussion has nothing to do with like the color of their skin. That if we say, okay, well, we're going to write a role then specifically for a black spy from Britain or just a black American spy, I worry about that because then that would say like maybe not just implicitly, but overtly, like James Bond is now like here and henceforth a white guy. Like this is the white spy. And then whatever this new role created, that's the black spy. And then we're just going to keep him that way. Whenever I think like with instances like James Bond, like you said, the Little Mermaid, it really doesn't matter. Like
right, doesn't matter.
Whoever shows up and can sing those songs the best and play the role the best should be able to get it because like the role has literally nothing to do with skin color. And I will say like the negative reactions people had to seeing that Little Mermaid, like get a life. Like right. You suck. Like you are a bastard of society. And I mean that in the fullest sense. Like
yeah, and like going back to the whole James Bond thing too is like if they can write it well to where it makes sense, like that there, because of course at some point with the James Bond films, I don't know if in the most recent one there is a succession now, if there's gonna be a next James Bond. Was there another James Bond?
Oh, they're looking for the new James Bond right now. The hunt is on.
Yeah,
the hunt is on.
So did James Bond, did that most recent story end? Did it end with like a sort of allusion to who the next James Bond will be, or like it's like what's happening with that?
It ended that 007 story. So Daniel Craig's James Bond, like it's going to be like its own little universe. Like it's completed, kind of like The Dark Knight. Like that's usually how the James Bond films are rolled. Granted, there's always like that tongue-in-cheek, like technically 007 is a code name, so we can just, these James Bonds are all part of one universe. No, screw that. I don't want to pretend like Octopussy is part of the same universe as Skyfall. Like it kills the immersion for me. But it's over for Daniel Craig and for that story, and we can definitely start new with any actor that shows up and shows that they can do this role, like anybody.
Yeah, but like I don't know, man. For me, I feel like the setup sort of completely depends on this, like, because if they're just out of nowhere, because I think a lot of people love Idris Elba as the next James Bond, but like there just needs to be that build up to sort of transition into that. Like you can't just be like, or you can't. I mean, you can because you can do whatever the fuck you want in Hollywood, but just like make it feel deserved. Just like have that sort of make sense instead of just being like, hey, here's your new black or woman James Bond. It's just like I think if anything, that's what people are more frustrated with. That it's not because of marginalized groups becoming these huge characters. It is that there's never a progression to or never have to work towards that huge name. They're just, hey, this is your next James Bond. Bow, here it is. You know what I mean?
I see where you're coming from, but I think they'll do a good job with it because that's what they did with Daniel Craig. So Casino Royale, I don't even think he officially had the code name of 007. He earned it in that film with what he did.
Okay.
And like that was kind of like the whole point of the movie is that he was that young, new, kind of like rough around the edges, hadn't completely assumed that title and role and responsibility of being Agent 007. And then he overcomes the odds and gets it. And of course, Casino Royale is amazing because there's way more to it, like the love interest dying. Like, could you imagine growing up, like seeing all those like different Bond girls, and then they decide finally to like kill one off in a really dramatic fashion, and it's incredibly impactful to the character of James Bond because she was the one, like he was going to risk it all for her. And I think they would do something like that again too. But I don't think like they need to do that because like if they do cast a black male to play James Bond because that person is black, because I don't think you have to prove anything about being black. Does that make sense? Like I don't think you have anything to prove. And I don't think that actor has to prove. They would have to just show that this character like overcomes something, does whatever they need to say, I am now codename 007.
Exactly. That character needs to prove that. It needs to prove and build up to earning that name. And I don't even know. I haven't watched a James Bond film, I don't think. But like I didn't know that he had to work up to Daniel Craig was never, or he had to build up to the 007 title. So like that makes it even more in character that someone, if there's when there's gonna be a next 007, they need to work as hard as that motherfucker did. Like he has to earn that. And like that's bring this back to Marvel. That's what a lot of people have about these new characters, that they never really, especially since they're being relegated to like 6 episode like Disney Plus shows, that they never had this time to build up to a character that people love, right? Like think of like Tony Stark's. Like there's not a Tony Stark right now in the MCU because these characters only have 6 episodes to build up to that their superhero status. And like going talking about MCU stuff in general, there's been reports about Blade and how that production is going, where just some bullet points. Mahershala Ali is frustrated with the process of Blade and how it's going. That could be because in part that the script is only 90 pages long, and that features only 2 lackluster action sequences in the entire film, which is like, come on, man, it's Blade. Like you kind of have to, jazz it up a little bit. And then
terrifying.
And probably like the biggest thing is like, and something that we could all kind of assume is that Kevin Feige is said to be spread too thin, which is like, at this rate, we already know every Marvel project up to like what I think 2024 or 2025 or something like that, and like there's like maybe like 5 per year or something crazy like that.
It's
like the MCU is just getting like I put it like it's crumbling right now, and unless they can like sort of dial back the projects, which I don't see them doing, like it's not going to end well by the time we get to that next big event where like we're looking for these characters that like have a whole bunch of like characterization and plots and stuff, and then we're gonna be sitting in that theater like, man, like this isn't the same as that moment back in 2017 with Infinity War and Endgame, where we were just like rooting in theaters like ready to see how this is going to end. Like but what do you think about MCU sort of right now in general?
Like I do think maybe Kevin Feige and like the creative team at Marvel is spread too thin. Like I do think that is the problem. Like they kind of remind me of Netflix. Whenever Netflix found out like all these companies are going to pull their films off for their own streaming services, and they just like started approving scripts without reading them. Like I feel like that we're kind of at that point where they're just trying to saturate the market, that it is hurting the quality. And like I mentioned earlier with like these products now being more diverse, like I feel like it's owed to like ensure the quality stays up to par. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, if I'm not wrong, WandaVision was pretty good, but She-Hulk would be only the second property that was female led in the MCU's history, correct? Like only the no Black
Yes.
Widow, so third, but
Yeah, yeah.
still, very few. And if you're too busy like putting out flames at Blade's
Right.
production, like that, you can't ensure that something coherent and decent's going on, then you may end up just sacrificing both those properties to being mid or worse.
Mm.
And with Blade, like I'm going to be especially frustrated if they mess that up. But after hearing the director, walked out, I've never heard of a film where the director quit and it turns out good.
Yeah.
Like I've never heard of it.
Is in trouble, man. Like, and there's like sort of ending the topic since the whole topic was about She-Hulk. Like, for the MCU, I'm just super disappointed with how MCU is sort of developing the women characters in these sort of, especially I think the biggest crime was Jane Foster. Like the way that they developed her character in maybe like 30 seconds of becoming the mighty Thor, and just like sort of just like, and especially because that movie was like a huge comedy. It's like, dude, like you could have developed like the coolest character ever. Like she has cancer, and then like maybe she has to build up to this like becoming. Quote, me and Caleb were actually having like a huge discussion about how like the hammer chooses who's worth it or not. And like, yeah, I forgot his name. The God Slayers, like they have so much serious
Gore.
aspects in that movie. Yeah, gore, and then like, dude, like imagine how dope Jane Foster could have been. Because like, I think the shining example of like, a woman-led superhero movie is Wonder Woman. 100%. Like that movie, like makes you feel something, man. Like they completely nailed that character. We don't talk about 1977 or what that movie is called. That movie was completely trash.
Yeah, 1984 was awful.
Yeah, that movie
garbage.
But like, yeah, like it's just such a pain that they are just like sort of shorting these women characters when we had characters like in that first half of Marvel, like Steve Rogers, Tony Stark. These like these really cool, like developed characters. Like y'all gotta get better, because this is I wish we had a woman on so we can get the perspective. Actually, is your wife watching She-Hulk right now?
Yeah, but she's not been particularly enthusiastic about it because she was very disappointed that She-Hulk didn't look like a Hulk. Like she felt like that they feminized her too much.
Yeah. I think in one of like the earlier sort of reports of movies that like they were actually fighting for they were either fighting for her to be bigger or fighting for her to be smaller. I think execs wanted her to be smaller, and it's like, I mean, but even in the comics, she was always sort of created in the male gaze of being kind of like sexier. I know in sort of like the newer Marvel comics, she is really hulky. I think she's even like the Red Hulk now, but I'm not really even paying attention to Marvel comics. But that definitely is sort of a valid criticism towards She-Hulk.
Dude, I wanted her to just have like huge biceps. I was kind of disappointed that her biceps, like, dude, like seriously, her
pretty
arms
noodly,
kind of look like,
a little noodly.
Yeah, like kind of noodly, and I'm just like, oh, I wanted to see like a flex on them. Like, come on. And my wife like felt a similar way, but once she gets caught up with it, I could probably ask her if she wants to come on and like talk about the state of female roles in the MCU
dope,
and
man.
see if there's any highlights, lowlights, like where she's at with it. But I would say, her being the common fan, I don't think she feels the same way about like where the MCU and I are headed, because I feel like, with it being part of like mass US culture at this point, like you just show up whenever the movie hits the cinema, and then you have that little roller coaster ride for 90 minutes and you leave, and like that's where the casual fans are at. And maybe it's not just like they're saturating the market, but like they've hit that point where they don't have to appease the bigger fans as much. Like they can just coast on people showing up no matter what. That's worrisome.
There's 2 points there. One, I would love for a woman to come on here and talk about this subject with us, because I hate that it's only us two guys talking about like women dynamics, and it just feels kind of icky. So I want that sort of like, if there is pushback, I don't know if women feel the same way. I'm sure there are women that feel on both sides. I would love to get that conversation in there. But two, like I totally get you with like how Marvel in particular has to sort of only sort of appeal to like that sort of casual sort of dynamic for the MCU, because when I was watching Multiverse of Madness, it felt so casual, because at every reveal, people were just like, woo, like, oh my god, like this whole cool thing happened, even though like everything around that movie was kind of just like mid. It was like I don't want to be the person that like shits on somebody's happiness, but like just seeing how the MCU can just skirt off of like those cameos, it was like y'all gotta ask for more, man. We can't just be hyped off of cameos now. Like we gotta sort of elevate this medium and sort of be critical about it. And that's sort of also reason that I had a point where like I genuinely think that Marvel critics are being paid off to like give these like films and projects good ratings because there's just no way. Like, yeah, I was watching like I went back to like Love and Thunder reviews and like She-Hulk reviews and like they're just I'm not trying to say like they're acting, but like they're just saying like really like sub like basic things like, oh, this is pretty good, like just like sort of starting off with like really like mid things to say. But
dude, my conspiracy theory is that they've always been doing it. Like I've
so?
always thought that, yeah, because I remember even early on, like I mentioned Thor: The Dark World. That's very early in the MCU. That's within like the first 4 or 5 years of it. I think before we even got to the second Avengers movie, even maybe even the first. No, it was after the first Avengers, but between the second one, I'm pretty sure. And a lot of these had much better reviews than like I could fathom from critics. Because these are the type of person, like, let's say you make an art film, like something that's completely original, and you give it your all. Like these people will devour you. Like these critics devour that. Like, didn't have like the greatest Oscar-worthy performance, 0. And then you look at these art films or whatever that have like lower scores on Rotten Tomatoes, like an aggregate, than an MCU film, and that always puzzled me. And I always was flabbergasted with almost every project they had was considered fresh. Like, I don't think there's very many, probably one hand you could count them that have the duds on Rotten Tomatoes. And to me, that is suspect. 100%. Like, that is suspect because, we've been in this ride for what now? Nearly 20 years coming up in 2007. And we know that there are duds out there. Like they're definitely duds in the MCU, sadly.
Right. And like one of the saddest things, like I was scrolling through TikTok, like everybody else in my generation were just constantly scrolling, and like I saw a sponsored video of like She-Hulk promotion, and I think even like Love and Thunder promotion at one point. And you're just looking through like the likes, and then you see that comment bubble, and you see that there's like no number under there, and like that means that it's blocked. Like you don't like they remove the ability for people to comment on it. It's like, dude, like that sucks so much because like it's like it's so blatant that you're trying to hide that people just don't like your content right now. And it's like I think one of the worst things that marketing can do is hide the fact that people don't like hide the just the bad press that you're getting, because you should sort of take that into consideration and like build off of that. And like we said, like there are some malicious factors in there that people just don't like it because of XYZ sort of malicious factor. But like like there's I think we can all agree as phase 4 Marvel fans that the dip in quality is very apparent, and you shouldn't run away from that your core fan base disliking some of your decisions. And like you can only pray now that phase 5 and 6 and later phase 4 can really disapprove on it. But like that's all speculation. We can only sort of just hope for that, right?
Actually, I'm gonna like be an optimist. I think we're gonna see the improvement whenever they like focus in on the movies, like specifically the Avengers films, when they're bringing all these IPs together. I think that's when we'll finally start to see the shine again. Because I really do feel like the TV show format, like She-Hulk, like I wish she had a movie instead.
Yeah, 100%.
I feel like a movie would have hit so much better. Like, and they even have like, the stereotypical like superhero origin, she's in a car accident, like, gets the contaminated blood from her cousin, like that's something you can do in the first 5-10 minutes of a movie and then have a film from there.
Yeah.
And but I think it'll pick up. So I'm optimistic.
Yeah. And I think like you say that too, I kind of just I think that Marvel, or I think there needs to be bigger clarification of how much like the importance of Disney Plus shows are. Because if we came into like new Disney Plus Marvel shows, knowing that these aren't going to have like huge effects on like the movies and like how that trajectory is going, I think a lot of people have a better sort of perception of it and just take these more as like a fun time rather than something that they need to watch that's going to affect the Marvel this point forward. Because I think at the end of the day, that's probably the biggest thing that's hurting Marvel right now, is that people think, and there's no clarification to which projects are the ones that are going to have an effect on MCU. Like we just all go into each one thing, and it's going to be that build up at the end of that one end credit scene that's you need to see. And like I think that's probably why people are just sort of more critical on the Disney Plus shows. But like you said, like the movies coming up, like those are the big shining moments where like actual stuff can happen. Like I think one of the Guardians 3 rumors is that this is going to be like the most sad Marvel movies ever, and it's like I can't wait to see how that group sort of deals with the struggle after Infinity War, right? And because actually, did they lose anybody from the Guardians in that movie? I don't think anybody from the Guardians died from.
And no, they all died. I'm pretty sure.
Really?
No. Yeah, I think all of them except for Gamora's sister. Like I think they all got snapped, because I remember in Endgame it was just the core Avengers again. Everybody else got snapped.
But Endgame they brought it back, right?
They brought it back at the end.
Okay, right. So because I'm trying to remember if anybody from that squad of characters died.
Oh no, the raccoon.
Did he die?
Rocket no, he Rocket survived the snap.
Okay, all right, got you. But yeah, like we said, like the movies definitely have just a bigger emotional weight right now for people, and like I just really want these are not I said DC.
Sorry,
that's fine. Marvel, like just to sort of like maybe like in their annual sort of directive, seeing like what's in the future, just to sort of sit down and say, hey, like these Disney shows are just more fun, like they're not sort of high stakes like our movies. And I think that would just like quell a lot of that anger that people have with sort of just wasting our time with each show. But you're more on the side of having more faith in Marvel. I'm more just like, you know what, you guys definitely have to prove yourselves going forward. I'm more hyped for DC at this point. And this perfectly leads into our last segment, our constant, our every month segment of what we're looking forward to in this coming month. Caleb, what are you looking forward to for the month of October and the rest of this week of September?
Dude, it's horror movie season.
Yes,
I'm probably
sir.
going to go see Smile tonight, actually, probably within a few hours of hopping off this podcast. And the reason is the viral marketing they did was amazing.
Perfect.
Amazing marketing. So for our viewers, what the Smile film did is it's a horror film that deals with people just, smiling really creepily. They paid front row seats behind the batter's box at Major League Baseball games for people to just stand there and smile, looking creepy with shirts that
I did not
smile.
know that.
And they did it the perfect time because for those that are not baseball fans, baseball history just happened the other day. Aaron Judge hit 61 home runs in a season. And people were watching, waiting for Judge to hit 61 and tie Roger Maris for the American League record. And in my view, the real record, because everybody that hit more than 61 cheated with steroids. So, like finally somebody that's not cheating is doing something amazing. And they paid loads of people to just sit there on the broadcast at the stadium to just smile. And it got a lot of people Googling creepy smile person at the Yankees game. First thing comes up as a movie. Amazing marketing. Like that's some next level stuff. Like beats a billboard or a TV spot, no doubt. So I'm definitely going to go check that out. I'm also looking forward to Halloween Ends. The last Jamie Lee Curtis and Michael Myers Halloween film. I think David Gordon Green and Danny McBride cap off. Just rewatched the first two the other day. I think they did an amazing job continuing John Carpenter's story from 1978. I think these are definitively the superior Halloween films. No debate there. I'll argue with anybody because a lot of the old ones were trash beyond belief. Horrible storylines and gimmicky crap, campiness. But these have been amazing. So I'm looking forward to that coming out in 2 weeks. What about you?
Oh, is it actually 2 weeks? Is it that soon?
October 14th? Yeah, on Peacock and in theaters.
Wow. That's a real quick question. Do you think Halloween is officially ending? Do you think this is the end for Michael Myers?
Yep. Wow. I think they're going to end this story. I think they dedicated to a trilogy, and I 100% respect that because that means they probably had an idea of where they wanted to go before they started. And I think it's going to be coherent and good. I think Michael Myers is going to get yeeted so I'm really excited to see that. But will Laurie Strode die is the real question. Like,
well, that's her daughter, right? Jamie Lee Curtis's daughter in the movie.
I'm not sure if it's actually her daughter that plays in the film. I know it's her granddaughter because her mom,
granddaughter. That's
her daughter got
yeeted
at the end of the last one.
Yeah. I mean, that's interesting though, because like I that'll be such the end of an icon, right? If this is actually Michael Myers' end, it's like, and like they have to sort of make it. They have to sell it because like for this to be his actual movie where he dies, like how do you kill Michael Myers, right? That's the huge question. But I think my list. Let's go ahead.
Well, I think the big question for me is how they went about this. Like, what is Michael Myers? Is it a man in a mask?
That's what I'm wondering too.
Or is it like true evil? Is he like Satan incarnate? Like, they've been so ambiguous about it. That's the big question that I would answer. Like, is this more than a man at this point?
Right. Is there a runtime for the movie yet?
What's the runtime for the film?
Yeah, is there a runtime yet?
Ooh, let's see. Like, watch it be like a 2.5 hour film.
Hey, I'm down because like like you said, I need answers, man. Because like, is he a supernatural being? Like, there's obviously like some supernatural elements to his character, but like, I need the answers. Why he can't die? Like, why is he just an unrelenting force?
I think it's gonna be like the last one, Halloween Kills. It's an hour and 51-minute runtime, which is 5 minutes more, which I'm going to assume there's going to be an extended cut coming that's going to hit that 2 hour mark, like the last one did. But I didn't mean to cut you off. I apologize.
You're good, man. Well, for me, like this week in October is completely stacked, man. Like, this first off, like Blonde came out. I think it was yesterday. Yeah, Blonde came out Wednesday. I finished it last night. It was a depressing watch, and like I've heard that critics say like this is like really inaccurate of Marilyn Monroe's life, but like I hope so because everything she went through was like it's a sad watch, man. But other than that, Kid Cudi's like rom-com drops tomorrow. It's called Intergalactic. He's also dropping an album with the show.
Ooh.
I was surprised you didn't know about that. Yeah, it looks. Did you see the trailer?
No, I'm gonna watch it like right after this.
Yeah, it's like I think it uses like the same art style as Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, so that's gonna be really dope. Like especially like a sort of animated romantic comedy. I'm so down. But other than that, like we got the games coming out. I'm looking forward to in October. And when I'm talking about October is stacked, it is completely stacked. So Street Fighter 6, the closed beta drops October 7th, I believe. There's a game called Guilty Gear Rev 2. There's this huge thing in the fighting game community called Rollback. It's basically just like better sort of online. There's gonna be a beta test for Rev 2 Rollback on Steam. Resident Evil 8 is getting DLC coming up on sort of like the last sort of end of October. Got Gotham Knights coming out. Got Bayonetta 3, Modern Warfare 2, like we were talking about. Anime Bleach is coming back after like I think like almost 7 years of being in the hiatus.
Holy cow!
Yeah, it's gonna be sick. We got My Hero Academia season 6 dropping. Mob Psycho 3, Chainsaw Man. That's like one of like the biggest anime in terms of manga right now. So people are excited for that. Movies, like you said, Halloween Ends is coming out. Super excited to see how Michael Myers officially ends. My theory is that I don't think they're gonna stop here. I think Ends is just like, well, probably they will stop, but they'll be like, okay, like maybe like 10 years down the line, we're bringing them back with this whole new generation or whatever. But after that, Black Adam's coming out. I'm excited for that. You know, DC, I'm rooting for DC right now. I'm kind of just on the whole like MCU, like you guys had your chance. DC coming up. Mortal Kombat Legends Snowblind is a movie that's coming out. I think it's going straight to digital. The Midnight Club is something I'm super excited for. It's from the same person who made The Midnight Mass on Netflix, and that Chef's Kiss super cool. Like I love something that's actually good about Netflix, which is really rare because Netflix feels like it constantly f's up all the time. Is that during October season they always have something really creepy you need to watch, and like recently it was the whole Jeffrey Dahmer sort of thing.
Yeah, I don't know if you watched that, but that was,
dude. Like I remember I said I wasn't gonna watch it. But like after seeing so many people were like, bro, this is like messed up. Like I had to watch it. And it's that first episode is completely chilling. Like it's sort of it's like the antithesis of what I hate about new horror movies, but like it just fixed everything because it was so just low key about everything that made it so spooky and scary. Like I was legitimately like I had to like sleep with like sounds on because I was so scared after watching that first episode.
It's because it really did happen. Like there was a person that did these horrible things. But what I like really appreciate about that show is not only did it show like the true villainous nature of how this person committed such horrible crimes, like showing who the victims were in their lives.
Yeah.
Like it was so heartbreaking to know like the whole, honestly, that show made me think a lot about life. Like it made me question a lot of things. Like what if I have a kid, my kid ends up like a Jeffrey Dahmer? Like would I be like that dad? Like how do you like ensure your child like grows up to being a productive, good person in society and not like something like a Dahmer? Just so many questions, and like I know this is sounds so bad, but like maybe it's just like I'm such an empathetic person. Whenever Dahmer like met his fate, like that he deserves, you know, I don't think he should have. Like death penalty was on the board. I think like that's probably what he should have received for victims closure, because what he did was just so gross, evil, vile. But as he was getting beat to death, like dude, I couldn't help but like pity him.
They showed
like,
that in the last episodes.
Yeah.
Okay. Because like for me, like I didn't even at some point of that show, I was like, just one thing about these types of shows is that I hate that. I know it's like a sort of nitpick, but I just don't like how we use these shows for entertainment because of how like real and like sort of just like it just feels like we weren't sort of empathetic towards these people, but like because with this show, it feels like sort of artsy in a way where they're just trying to get all this like I don't know, but like comparing it to like the YouTube channel like JCS, I'm pretty sure you heard of it, like where they like educational, like almost like 90% with like, you know, there's some storyline to it, but like it's almost purely educational. But like at the end of by like episode 5, I was like, these episodes are just like so like just not holding me. But like I said, I just hate looking at it like that because it shouldn't be a show about entertainment rather than like you're getting sort of a recall of like the events that happened. But yeah, I didn't know that they showed that him getting beat.
Yeah, I wouldn't even consider that like an entertaining show by any stretch of imagination. It's like Requiem for a Dream. I'll never watch it again. Like I think it was very well made. Like it was good. But it's just so sick, disturbing, and you just have to like wrestle with those themes. So I gotta ask you, am I a bad person for saying like I feel like it makes me so sad that like that whoever that kid was, like that young Jeffrey Lionel Dahmer, grew into something like so horrible. And like like all it can make me think is like, how do we as a society ensure like people that have those red flags in their youth don't grow up to cause such horrific harm to people like that? You know, like whose fault is it really? Is it his parents? Like, was he born some way and he needed like some constant help, like to ensure he never did that? Like how do we make sure there's no more Ted Bundys and Jeffrey Dahmers in the world? Like that's what the show made me think.
Yeah, and you're definitely not alone because like literally like the second episode, like I felt empathy for the guy because like it's so complicated. Like we can't nail down where things went wrong. Was he just born this way? Was it his father's fault for, you know, letting him play with animal guts from like the, you know, age 5? It's like,
yeah, that was a horrible idea. I don't know why his dad did that.
Like
that was
a
horrible idea.
And it's just like I think there's more something weird about you if you really don't feel some sort of like how could we not have how can the people in his life could have prevented this? Because I remember there's a scene in the show where it's like I feel like there's some weird psychology of like parents are just older figures are just sort of avoiding the red flags, maybe because they think like their kid is perfect and like they just can't do any wrong, like because there's just so many red flags that they just sort of just like skirt to the side when they could have just helped the guy. But then it's also like, you know, I kind of get on this generation for being like a little bit too soft, but like you look at something like this where they're super hard on like the youth of that generation, to where like, you know, they probably had no idea what the hell like mental health was, right? But now like it's being pushed so much in today's time, like you can't help but like be really grateful that there are outlets at such a young age, even TikTok, for something as, you know, maybe sort of leading as it is, like at least they know from an early age that yes, that there's like mental health and stuff that you can get help for. And like, yeah, like I feel bad for Jeffrey Dahmer, like in the sense that not because of, because obviously what he did was just like legitimate evil. Like if there's some guy in this world like I can pin evil to, that's evil. Like
yeah, that is actual evil.
Yeah. Like he's just not some serial killer. Like you legitimately watch that, you're like, this guy is like the definition of evil. But like just the whole thing of like him growing up, like how couldn't you feel bad for this little kid? Because like he has so much. Because I guess like there's so, like at least in my sort of theory, like there's so much molding you can do just to help these people out. Like just no one really helped them. And like even like just to get a little personal, like I feel like this generation, like people around my age, we are kind of just lonely. And like I think besides the whole killing and just the super weird shit that he did, like you can look at him like just being isolated and like not having a lot of people around him to sort of just like help him out. Like I think in some weird, very weird aspects, and not in the malicious way, because like let's not make me seem like a killer here, but like you can kind of see just a little bit of reflection in someone like him. I think a lot of, I don't want to make any accusations, but like I think some men can look at Jeffrey Dahmer. It sounds so crazy, I'm sorry, but like maybe just see like a little speck of just like what went wrong in his life, and just sort of being like, yeah, like I can see what happened there. But
yeah, I do think you're right. Like there is a form of responsibility, because it's how I said, like, how do we ensure that doesn't happen again? And I think in some like cases, like in a modern sense, we do have like more mental health awareness. So you and I, like, we would be thinking, okay, so if I was in that father's position, whenever that he's showing those red flags at 5, 6 years old, I'm thinking like, I got to get this child to a doctor and immediately get this taken care of. But there's 100% those people out there that would think, oh, if my kid was like being a freak playing with guts, I'm just slap the crap out of them until they act normal. And it's like, that's, it's things like that is like, I think what kind of like led to him being so messed up and like having such a fractured view of the world that he just decided to do such horrible things. Right. And I also think like wanting to do that comes from an empathy for the victims, because like those young men that he killed, and not even all of them were young men, some of them were children, 2 of them were 14-year-olds,
right? Fuck.
Like, and he wasn't just like killing them, like he was a child molester and stuff like that. I don't want that to happen to anybody, so I'm very interested in how we can even like stop it before it gets to victim 1. Like I don't think we can just as a society think we can just beat up our bad people in society and that the problem will go away in perpetuity. We got to figure out like be dedicated truthfully to ensuring that we don't have another reason to make a Netflix show in 20-30 years. You know what I mean? But the sad thing is I couldn't help but think like the 80s and 90s, like this is a contemporary thing, 80s and 90s and all of them, they had like all the serial killers. Now we have like mass shootings,
right?
Like I feel like that's I'm always interested in making sure things like that don't happen anymore.
Yeah, and then like another horror of the show is like legitimately like we're in that age group of some of our friends, our family members are like having kids, and just like in the back of their head is like especially seeing the show is like can I raise a child right? Like that's to me that's horrifying, because like I mean of course it's an experience that you learn through it, but like I'll be horrified to raise my child wrong. But like like the stories you hear about parenting is that you're never really ready for it. So like when you get into it, you just have to sort of just like wing it. But like to me, that's just so scary, like not knowing what could happen. But like, yeah,
like I'm sure you remember like being in school too, right? Like those kids that would be like bullies, right? In grade school, like they had like those awful impulses where they just had to put down people or beat up on the smaller kids. Like oftentimes those kids, like, like whenever they got home, they were being beaten up by their dad. Their dad would be like, stop being such a pussy, and slapping them around. And then they go to school and find the small kid and they'd be like, take this, you pussy, like, like, you definitely never like seeing that cycle perpetuated, like at all. So like, I'm 100% with you on this topic, man. Like, how do we make sure we don't need another Netflix show about this shit?
Well, and you bring a good point, because like, is school shootings like the natural evolution of like just since we're in a whole different era from like those times, is like, are these shooters like the new age Jeffrey Dahmers? Because like you definitely can't get away with what he did now because there's so many forensic evidence and like people are just more security and stuff like that. But like, because I was actually genuinely shocked, like the scene where he was hiding in the changing room, right? Like now I was, because I've worked in retail before, like there's so many security measures to not see that. But like I was asking my mom, like they just literally just didn't have security like that back in the day, right? And like even just seeing how the cops were just so just inefficient at like looking at this guy and just doing like actual like investigative work or whatever. But like I don't know what the tangent was there, but just that show is definitely something. If you don't want to watch the whole thing, then like I totally get you, but it's definitely a complex watch. I'll say that.
Yeah, if you're not thinking after watching it, then like I don't think
I don't know what, right? Exactly.
Like you need to be thinking about like things like that. I want to say, like, since we were talking about like the progressions like of serial killers versus like the mass shooters of today, I would say a lot of those kids that you see like the pictures of them arrested, they do remind me of those old serial killers. Like the one that I think that shot up Parkland, that really weird looking one. Like he does look like a Jeffrey Dahmer type.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And 100%. Yeah. And like unfortunately, like when you said, the Parkland thing, like at this point in my life, like they all it sounds so messed up to say, like they're all just so jumbled up because there's so many. Like I don't know how people can like keep up with each one and like know which one did which thing. It's like because they just all blend into each other, which is so like unfortunate. But like you nailed it. Like they look like Jeffrey Dahmer ass motherfuckers, and like it's so scary that like would you agree that this is like, I'm not sure if natural evolution is what to call it, but is this the new age sort of Jeffrey Dahmer, the school shooters?
Yeah, well, if you watching, let us know in the comments. Like, did we just discover something?
Right.
I want to bring this up since we were talking about what we're looking forward to. Neither of us mentioned Amsterdam.
What's Amsterdam?
So there's this movie. I'm going to read you this cast list. It comes out in 2 weeks. Like this cast list is going to blow your mind. Are you ready?
Right.
Christian Bale, Margot Robbie, John David Washington.
I do know this
movie.
Chris
Rock. Like, oh my goodness, Mike Myers, Taylor Swift, Timothy Olyphant, Robert De Niro, like Rami Malek, like all these really famous people came in for this movie.
That's a heavy cast. That's heavy hitters.
By David O. Russell, the guy that did Silver Linings Playbook, which a goated film about mental health. Like that's one of my all-time favorites.
Yeah.
But neither of us mentioned it, and like I've seen the trailers for it, and I don't know what it is, but I'm not so hyped for it. Like I'm hyped for the cast list. I'll check it out, but like it looks like typical Oscar bait.
Yeah, and like that's sort of the new age of like Hollywood for you, man. Like I don't have any evidence for it, but I definitely think like the franchise definitely ruins other movies, and that because like imagine if, like the MCU wasn't a thing and like we didn't have these like rehashes and remakes. Like this movie would be like, bro, I gotta see this for like this actor, even though it doesn't look great. But like, what's Denzel Washington's son's name again? Because I love that guy.
Wait, that is Denzel Washington's son?
Yeah.
John David Washington is his son.
You didn't know that?
Oh, that explains so much. I was like, yo, this guy's a natural. Yeah. Like watching him in 10, I was like, dude, this guy's gonna be the next big thing. Like that makes so much sense. He fell from like one of the greatest acting trees that an apple could fall from.
Right. I love that guy. Like Tenet was, while a complicated film, like that dude killed his role, man. He just has such like you said, he's such a natural at it. He's falling from the one of the greats. Like
have you seen the movie? He's in the Black Klansman by Spike Lee.
He was in Black Klansman?
Yes, he was the main character.
Oh right, he was. You're right. Yeah, I was didn't know it's like because now he plays all his roles with like a shaved head. Like he had a whole afro. Yeah.
That is one of my all-time favorite films. That film was freaking hilarious. It's genuinely a hilarious film, but has a lot of like good points to be made about like, society at large and the time period that it was taking place in. Spike Lee's a talented guy. He just oozes talent. So of course he's going to be good.
Right. I'll definitely probably check it out. And if not, I'll wait for streaming services. But Anyway, guys, that was episode 6 of the Pop Cult Cast. We are glad to be back. I want to know what you guys think. What are you guys' thoughts on She-Hulk? What are you guys' thoughts of what you're looking forward to? Or do you think Michael Myers is actually going to die, or are we going to get some more Michael Myers films? Bruce Willis, MW2, Ezra Miller, and of course, Twitch. We'll see you guys next time on episode 7 of Pop Cult Cast. See you next time.